head to Minnesota, where Kevin O'Connell talked to Albert Breer about handing over the QB job to J.J. McCarthy. O'Connell saying, we won't know until we get out in the grass with him. But my expectation is he's going to have a great spring, and we're going to feel really good about him going into training camp. You guys loved this quote.
Well, the story as a whole is worthwhile, and I think the quote is good as well. I think the reason we liked it was because you have been so adamant that as you put it, the grass is not always greener. And I thought the reason I like this quote is I think Kevin O'Connell is acknowledging that. I think Kevin O'Connell is flatly saying, yeah, this is a risk we're taking, and we don't know, but we feel it is worth the risk because we have felt like since he's been there, there has been a ceiling on how great this team could be in games that really matter because it's never had a great quarterback. Kirk Cousins was a good quarterback, and Sam Darnold had a really good year. Now listen, you guys know, I didn't understand J.J. McCarthy being a first-round pick. The best thing I could say about him, when we were doing the draft last year, I kept making the joke that whenever people talk about J.J. McCarthy, they talk about things like what a great handshake he has and how good he looks you in the eye. And it's not a bunch of football-based things. So I think it is a risk. But you get upset with me when I do this because I am clearly not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. What I am saying is the Kansas City Chiefs won the division every year, won double-digit games, and had a quarterback in Alex Smith that gave them a ceiling. And so they eschewed Alex. They moved up for a quarterback like the Vikings did. He sat a year like this kid did, and then they got rid of Alex Smith. Differently, they traded him because they wanted a chance to be great. And so I respect, trying to go for it, which is what I think the Vikings are doing.
Yeah, Patrick wasn't coming off of an injury that then had to go in and get scoped a second time.
I understand. The injury part's unfortunate.
I understand that they're taking a risk. They really took the risk when they drafted him, and now they're going to try to give it some time here to see where he is. But this is a little bit deceptive because they can't really trade for Kirk Cousins till after June 1st because the salary cap hit to Atlanta would be too great. But after June 1, it's split.
You think they might want to start Kirk Cousins?
Right now, the only other quarterback is Brett Rypien on the roster right now. So I would imagine they're going to go get a backup that they feel could win a bunch of games should something happen to J.J. McCarthy. So that backup probably is going to need to have some level of experience. So I would imagine that's either Kirk Cousins or it's Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to let it go play out through the spring, and then they'll go find a veteran that they can bring in, and if things go really south, they've got someone that can plug and play and actually, win a bunch of games.
But Kirk, don't you think Kirk and Aaron are going to want to start? Obviously, Aaron's going to want to start. Kirk, I think, would too. I mean, he could just stay in Atlanta if he wants to be a backup.
Well, Kirk is a little bit interesting because when he left because the money wasn't right. Mm-hmm. But everything that I've read is that the relationship with the organization was great, the relationship with the city was great, the relationship with the coach was great. He might be of the mindset of, this gives me my best chance to be successful, and he may come in saying, yeah, I don't want to start, where, internally, he feels like he can beat out J.J. McCarthy if he goes back, and if he doesn't, he's in an environment that's great, and his money is guaranteed anyways.
So, go ahead, bro.
Well, I don't think they have doubt. I mean, obviously they know for a fact about McCarthy, but I think like this quote, to me, that first part of that quote is kind of a throwaway, like a little, well, of course, look, we don't know until we get him on the field, but we think, I think where's the emphasis in the quote is a big matter. It's either we don't know until we get him on the field, but we think he can be good, or look, we don't know until we get on the field, but we think this guy's really, you know what I mean? So I think it's the latter. Because I agree with Nick that you had a clear ceiling with Sam Darnold. Like you weren't, even if you brought Darnold back and won 12 games, I don't see any way you're winning the NFC with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. And I think they understood that as well. And so they're willing to take a step back. But I think they really believe in McCarthy because last year they believed in him.
Do you, though? Does it really matter?
I mean, it seemed like he might have been the starter before he got.
That's the other part of this article was they expected J.J. McCarthy to be the starter last year. They did not sign Sam Darnold to be the starter. They signed him so you had an experienced backup in case McCarthy wasn't ready. But
this is just wrong. We need to stop with this nonsense. And I made the clips during the offseason last year. Okay? Kevin O'Connell kept bringing up kept bringing up Sam Darnold. Okay? They paid Sam Darnold $10 million. Look at the salaries for these quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett was $8 million. He was intended to be the starter, but then eventually he got benched. But he was the starter. So was Gardner Minshew, $8 million. Some of these I'm skipping because they're obviously, like rookie deals or whatever. And also then it's also you got to deal with, cap number and then cash spent. But when we see that there wasn't a single quarterback that was, that wasn't signed, that was making $10 million, every quarterback that was making at least $10 million or more was the starter. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. The true backup quarterbacks that we knew without a shadow of a doubt were going to be indeed backup quarterbacks were getting paid $3 million, $3 million, $2 million. Zach Wilson, $2.7 million. Joshua Dobbs, $2.2 million. Nick Mullins, $2 million. Mitch Trubisky, $2 million. Kenny Pickett, again, some of these it's tough because, like I said, it's part of their already existing deals. Russell Wilson, $1 million. So again, paying Sam Darnold the $10 million that they did is just not a common occurrence. Okay, it's just not. Go back and listen to what Kevin O'Connell kept saying. It was very clear that Sam Darnold, again, unless J.J. McCarthy absolutely just played out of his mind, was going to be the starter. I covered the very clips themselves, listening to the interviews from Kevin O'Connell. It was so clear, and I predicted that before J.J. McCarthy even got hurt, because I said, listen, Sam Darnold, you guys are going to win a ton of games. Sam Darnold was always the play. Don't be too disappointed that, that J.J. McCarthy got injured. But you're not paying $10 million for him just to be a backup. You just don't see it. You just don't see it. It just doesn't exist. Kind of the most amount of money was Marcus Mariota for $6 million. But there was no, $10 million is a chunk of change just to be like, oh, he's just to back up our rookie quarterback. That's just not common practice. Which is why, again, they paid Jacoby Brissett, and he was the starter. He played himself out of the starting role. It doesn't mean that you're always going. It doesn't mean that Sam Darnold was going to stay the starter for the entire season. But that is the intention. So we have to stop with that. Drew Lock, $5 million. Joe Flacco, $5 million. I mean, he got double the money of Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Andy Dalton, a veteran backup quarterback, $4 million. So this narrative is false. And it drives me crazy, and then it gets us further from the truth of what we're talking about. Now, listen, I understand everyone's now trying to judge what he said with his quote. And the reality is, though, I don't think it was a throwaway line. I actually think it was a slightly too honest line. I get how Brew tried to, initially craft it. Because I understand, right? Sometimes you do throw, where you're kind of like, well, anything can happen, but this is what I think. My expectation is he's going to have a great spring, and we're going to feel really good about him going into training camp. Even that sentence is kind of interesting to me. We won't know until we get out on the grass with him. Coaches are incredibly intentional, especially smart coaches, especially coaches that actually have control of their team, especially coaches that understand their culture. In fact, a lot of times when you see a coach that is about to get fired, when you listen to them talk, you can see, your words are kind of all over the place. You're kind of sloppy when you're interviews. You're kind of sloppy with what you say. I saw you on Hard Knocks, and you're kind of like a little bit over here, a little bit over there. That's not Kevin O'Connell. So when he says something, his words are intentional. They're carefully worded. And now, if JJ McCarthy was 100% a rookie and he got injured, playing in college, right before the draft or something like that, then I understand that. But they had, if JJ McCarthy, like if everything what they're saying is true of last season, where JJ McCarthy was meant to be the starter, well, then they already know who he is. So then you wouldn't be like, well, we won't know until we get out on the grass. They said he made a full recovery. We saw him before. If you make a full recovery, it's like if Patrick Mahomes got injured last season. In no world would Andy Reid make a statement, we won't know until we get out there, but my expectation is that Mahomes will be pretty good. You wouldn't say that. It's like, again, you have to be careful when you see how things are phrased. That's why, like, it actually is a weird quote. It is leaving the door open. It is actually airing out some questions, some concerns. That is a reality. Yes, your expectations are that he's going to have a great spring and we're going to feel really good about him going into training camp. That's fine, of course, because of course that's your expectations. And to me, that's the obvious. That's more the obvious. That's more the throwaway line. It's like, well, yeah, my expectations are that he's going to have a great spring and we're going to feel really good about him going into training camp. Yeah, if those weren't your expectations, well, then you drafted the wrong quarterback. Then you made a mistake letting Sam Darnold go, etc. But the whole idea of we won't know until we get out on the grass with him, well, it's just like, you would already have this embedded confidence. He didn't have reconstructive surgery on his spine. He had meniscus surgery. Like the most common knee surgery ever. It's the most routine surgery, again, ever. You don't have to go to a special world-renowned surgeon to get the surgery done because it's just so standardized. It's not even funny. It's not like an Achilles surgery where like, oh, if you go to this doctor, they're going to use like an internal brace and they have like a newer procedure and not all doctors are trained in that procedure, et cetera, et cetera. If you break your clavicle even, you go to a doctor and some doctors are like, no surgery. Other doctors are like, let's do surgery and we're going to put, essentially like a metal bracket on it. And some doctors are like, well, we're going to actually do a screw and you can do a screw inside the bone. And some other doctors are like, well, we're going to do a bracket, but we're going to do two brackets, one over here and actually one underneath. Like there's so many different ways to kind of do, to kind of go about doing it. It's not like that for meniscus surgery. It's very routine. You either see it's like you can either repair it because it's repairable. If it's not repairable, then you have to remove it or you trim it out. But it's all standardized. You either know you can repair it or you can't. It's not really like, this doctor believes you can repair it. That doctor believes you can't. Like it's pretty binary in that regard. So again, like this isn't earth-shattering here. So this the whole stuff about JJ McCarthy really has been bizarre. It really, and I just made a video about JJ McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers with the herd and whatnot, but like this does continue to get more bizarre. And I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, truly do not think this is just people trying to create content in the offseason. I really don't believe that. I'm sorry. When they do that, it's not the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings do not move the needle enough for these guys nationally. They just don't. I've been like, I have to, throughout last offseason, when they were winning games, when they were balling, I had to work so hard to find Minnesota Vikings clips. And most of it was just negative. It was just like, let's just bash on Sam Darnold. But I had to cut so many random clips of when Nick was doing his, his rankings and the mountain and all that type of stuff. I had to work so hard to really find clips. And occasionally there would be like its own standalone clip and it would be for like 3 minutes leading into the commercial. So again, like they're not using the Minnesota Vikings to just like stir up controversy, stir up content. It's just not a bit, for whatever reason, it's just not big enough for them. It's just not. So like these stories to me like do have some weight to them because we can see what they try to do with some of the other teams where they keep trying to just like make stuff up. And it's Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers and Shedeur Sanders and the New York Giants. Like it's the same thing again and again and again. J-Mac saying the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs. First things first, talking about, who's under more pressure, Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy. Like Those are those forced like off-season takes where you're just like, man, what are we going to talk about? We got to talk about something. Should the 49ers trade Brock Purdy for TJ Watt? It's just like, what are we talking about here? This is real. There is actually, a reality to this. And that's why I keep pleading to Minnesota Vikings fans to be like, this is something that you want to wrestle with, that you want to acknowledge, that you want to contemplate, and not just automatically dismiss. And again, I feel like I'm a great messenger for that, because just go back in time, man. Go back to my takes all the way back this time last year. See all of the things that I had said about the Minnesota Vikings, and I was 100% right on every single one of them. I was talking about the Minnesota Vikings being true top contenders with Sam Darnold, back in like April, May, June, July. I kept saying it, and they obviously were. They won a ton of games. They had massive amounts of success. So you can't come at me and just say that I'm like a doubter or a hater or, anti this or that, because like I'm not. I even praised the JJ McCarthy draft pick, So I don't know. But this continues to be the most bizarre story of the offseason, without a shadow of a doubt, because there's actually realness to it. I don't care about like, oh, Shedeur Sanders, should the New York Giants, trade back or try to trade up, and try to get Shedeur and Travis Hunter, will Brock Purdy sign a deal for $50 million or $55 million? It's like, oh my God, I don't care. All of that stuff is just kind of like, whatever. This is real. This is something. We just don't my ultimate conclusion for this is that we clearly do not have all the information, and that the Minnesota Vikings they're not giving all the answers. They're just not. They've been very kind of opaque with this, and quite frankly, this quote right here kind of sums that up for me. It really does. Because you would just say, hey, you know what, JJ McCarthy, we're really excited. He made a full recovery. He's feeling great, looking great. We're excited to pick off right where we left off, so, there we go, boom. But it's just like, they're just leaving multiple threads open. My expectations are he's going to have a great spring. Obviously. Like, that's the most, like, please tell me what else could he have said in that moment? I don't really know if JJ McCarthy's really going to be able to, have a great spring or not. No coach in their right mind has ever made a statement like that, ever. I don't know, it's weird, man. It's weird. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about this actually legitimately never-ending story about JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.